Hello everyone, my name is Joshua and this is the 175th video on my video journal series. Today's date is Sunday, the 2nd of August 2026. How's everyone been? I've been pretty good, thank you. And today I went over to my granddad's place. It's been a while since I've last been to his house, maybe around a month. But my family and I, we all went there. And, he's doing good. Same old. And his house is still the same, still that same layout, furniture, antiques, the vinyl flooring, and that very distinct smell that I really haven't, I guess, smelt elsewhere apart from his house. My granddad's place has that very distinct smell, and I can recount that smell from my early childhood, and it's still present. And that's one of the reasons why I like going over to my granddad's place, because of that distinct smell in his house, The smell of all the vintage furniture and cans of soft drink laying around. And, just, I guess, old people smell, right? It sounds weird saying that, but old people have that very distinct smell. And combine that with a whole lot of other things, I get used to it and it brings me some nostalgia. But anyway, that's a little bit weird, but nonetheless very apparent. And afterwards, I actually went to the pub with a friend of mine. We got some drinks. I had a alcoholic drink. He had a non-alcoholic drink. He had I think it was a Coke, because he was the driver. And then afterwards, we went to go get kebabs, and we both got a beef kebab, and it was very nice. And obviously, he dropped me off home, and I just hit the record button on my phone, and yeah, that was my day today. Just it's kind of weird when you just return back home, and then the first thing that you do is hit the record button on your phone and just start talking about your day. But that's pretty much what my life has become. But I want to make this video, I guess, about the conversation I had with my friend, because he is older than I am. And yeah, when we were at the pub, we had like some small talk. He was talking to me about like YouTube. He's not very a tech savvy person, but he says, oh, you can make a good living off of YouTube. Now, mind you, no one else in my family knows about my video journal series. All right, it's mostly a private thing. I guess in terms of like my family life, it's private, but obviously I'm uploading these videos publicly onto YouTube. But so this person obviously doesn't know I'm doing these videos, but he says, you can make like a very good living off of YouTube, all these influencers and tech people who start out small, and then they slowly grow, and grow, and then, they make money through sponsorships, through ads. And I asked him, well, what do you think is the key behind that? He says, oh, the key behind that sort of success is just marketing, how well you communicate. And that made me think about my video journal series. Obviously, I'm not going to put ads on these videos or sponsorships. It'll defeat the purpose of this project. But, it made me think about, like, obviously my main channel, right? How do I guess, attract more people? I guess thumbnails and titles are key, but, I'm like, all right, if I want to sort of grow my main channel, which is not the PM, the one where I do all my photography stuff, how do I sort of expand my outreach? How do I guess, make better thumbnails and video titles? I guess that's not everything when it comes to YouTube. Obviously, I care much more about the quality of the actual video than its I guess its presentation in terms of title and thumbnail. But I noticed that on my main channel, I guess the videos that do better are not only just the shorter ones, but the ones where they have like a pretty good thumbnail, which is auto generated, because I don't make custom thumbnails. It just picks out a scene from the video, like for example, a shot of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, or something that looks interesting, like my video which I posted onto my main channel of the Wellington cable car. That one got like I think like 115 views as of recording this, which is pretty good on my main channel. And I obviously think to myself, all right, well, it's because it's the thumbnail center, sorry, the object, which is the cable car itself, is in the center of the frame, and it's something exotic that most people around the world haven't seen. Something that Wellington is famous for, the cable car. That's just an example. There are plenty more, I guess, things I can pick out from my own videos on my main channel. With this video journal series, however, I guess in terms of thumbnails, it's just me on the couch or out and about, just looking at the camera. So there's not really much diversity. So I often have to rely on, I guess, the video title to pull people in. And yet again, this project is not just about views. I just want to have some sort of community engagement, like through comments and all that, just to like know that people are actually watching these videos. But yet again, no, yeah, that was something that popped into my mind when he just started discussing YouTube and online. I hate to use that term, influencers. I don't want to be an influencer. I want to be, some old man shouting on a couch, or when I'm in my late 30s. But, um, time will tell. That's all I'll have to say. Time will tell. But yeah, we also discussed other things. I said to him, "Oh yeah, I used to work in the fast food and retail industries," and he says, "Oh yeah, those are mostly like part-time sort of things." And he, said to me, "The way you're going, you're not going to stay in those sort of industries forever, at least in terms of my life." And I obviously said, "Yeah, I left those industries so then I can look for full-time work." And he says, "Oh yeah, that's like the right thing to do. You just." You show up to work, you do the work, and you leave. That's pretty much his motto in life. He's a lot more laid back than I am, but at the same time, he's like that sort of person, my friend, uh, what I'm talking about, to basically just do work as it comes. Not really to plan anything ahead, but if something comes up, just do it, because to him, it doesn't matter what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month. Everything's sort of, um, you know, everything's sort of open to change, if you know what I mean. I'm very much someone who likes to plan ahead. What I'm going to do tomorrow, what I'm going to do next week, what I'm going to do next month. I like to, prep down everything. But yet again, though, I realized to myself, well, obviously, I can't plan everything in life, and it would be worth it to plan all the essentials, but to leave things flexible within my schedule. My friend told me of a story where when he was my age in his 20s, he used to go to Queensland, and he went to Queensland for holidays and all that, but he never used to book anything. He just you know at the very least will book something the night before, or that includes like transportation, hotels, and all that. Or he'll just like hop on a bus. Literally, he'll just like get a bus ticket, take a bus all the way from New South Wales to Queensland, which is a pretty long journey, and he'll just like as soon as he arrived in Queensland, he'll just like book hotels, or not book hotels, but just like walk inside of a hotel and just like, "Oh, you got any rooms available?" And I do know people like that, and to some extent, I am sort of like that when it comes to transport. When I was in Japan, I didn't book any of the I guess Shinkansen um, services in advance. This Shinkansen train services, I just bought tickets on the day. That's because Japan has very frequent rail um, services, unlike here in Australia where you have to book if you want to go regional, that is, from one sort of town to the next, or if you want to go like a very big distance or very far distance by train or transport, you often have to book like flights, coaches, trains. Sydney to Bathurst, Sydney to Brisbane, Sydney to Melbourne, because you don't want like those seats to be sold out. But yeah, my friend, he just pretty much did things as they come up, and he also used to tell me, yeah, he used to go to like a lot of parties, and used to do pretty much every single day he was doing something in his 20s, and he used to tell me, oh yeah, I got like it wasn't unusual for me to get like 4 hours of sleep, for a week straight. And I'm like, really? I could not survive on 4 hours of sleep um, for one night, let alone a whole entire week. And it's when you like, I guess, speak to the older generation and get like a sense of what their life was like and what the sort of, I guess, societal attitude or norm was like back then, or I guess, you know, what society did or what they did. Because I don't know, I feel like now we just obviously live in a time where, you know, obviously, how would I put this? He said this. Yeah, young people nowadays don't really go out often. When I was your age, we went out a lot. We partied with all our friends. And I sort of disagree with that. There's no real measure to, I guess, determine what the societal norm or change is. You can notice it. It's more like qualitative data instead of quantitative data, if you know what I mean. Like you know, like it's the thing with the older generation, right? When they come over to your suburb or to your house, they're like, "Oh, it's awfully quiet over here." You know, a lot has changed since we last come here, sort of thing. At least that's what happens in my life. You know, this friend of mine says, "Oh yeah, where you live, it's very quiet." I remember, 10 or 20 years ago, it used to be loud. There used to be people partying, but not anymore. And it really makes me think. Well, obviously that's his perspective of things. That I guess when he was young, people used to party a lot. But then I think, well, maybe it's because he's grown older. He doesn't go to many parties or social gatherings. That maybe he notices not much social activity. But I'm a young person. I notice there's still a lot of social activities, partying, and recreational activities being sort of performed or initiated by people my age. That's just to put in very fancy words. But um, yeah, so I'll take that with like a sort of like grain of salt. But he did tell me a lot about like how things have changed near where he lives, near where I live, near the pub that we went to. Actually, we went to a pub in Marrickville, and he said, "Oh man, Marrickville, last couple of 8 years, sorry, last couple of years, around 8 years, it has changed. It used to be just pretty much all industrial, but now there's some pubs, some breweries, um, a lot more going for it. Nice places to eat, and um, yeah, like I would have never known that because Marrickville in my eyes, at least from what I've known, has always been like that sort of place where if you want to go out to eat, uh, it will be a nice place. If you want to go out, to Marrickville Metro, do some shopping, get some groceries, or just go to a semi-casual sort of diner, Marrickville or anywhere near the west. Maybe Leichhardt will be your best options. But if you ask someone maybe 30 years ago, that's not something they'll pop into their heads, because those suburbs were completely different. They'll just pretty much just all industry, or just like working class neighborhoods. And yeah, like I know it's a pretty deep story I'm telling here, but it's pretty much whenever I talk to people like my friend or um, older people, you often get into very deep discussions about life and what they did, and I guess sort of keeping in touch with each other. And um, I often take my sort of life advice from the older generation because they've lived through it. Mind you, this was in a different era, so if they say, "Oh yeah, buy a house when you're 30," I'm like, I can't do that. I'm way too young. Even in my 30s, I can't afford a house. I mean, I'm 20 right now, but hypothetically speaking, when I even reach the age of 30 years old, I would even have enough money saved up. The median age of owning a house in Sydney is like mid 30s, 40s, or something like that. It's incredibly high. Um, maybe I'll just be a renter throughout my entire life. I don't know. Maybe I'll just be living with my parents for my entire life. I don't know. So yeah, I guess when it comes to like certain things, it is a little bit outdated. But when it comes to like stuff like work or success or just like general life advice, like do as your parents told, or don't sweat about things too much. I often take their advice, and a lot of my friends say, "Oh, Josh, you're like an old man, with your I guess um, what'd you call it, sayings and sort of behavior or mentally. I'm an old man because I often bring up very outdated references or the advice that old people have given me and are passing on to my friends. Not the housing bit, obviously, but like again, my friend who never really plans anything, just does things as they come up, or says, "Oh, a part-time job's just a part-time job." There's great flexibility within the retail and hospitality and fast food sectors, and he said, "Oh, you leaving a job was most probably a good idea. If you don't like a job, you just leave it, sort of thing." And obviously, my mentality, right, as a young person is, all right, well, I have to work a job even if I don't like it. I just need the money. But yeah, and again, though, I've had like pretty bad jobs before. And, his words sort of like reassured me, like saying, all right, well, what I did at the beginning of the year, leaving my retail job, was actually a good thing, because uh, yeah, that's my pretty much my biggest sort of piece of life advice I've taken from the older generation, at least the people I've talked to. If I don't like a job, or if you don't like a job, doesn't matter how much money you're making, I'm just going to leave it. I'll find my dedication elsewhere. He says, "Oh, yeah, if you like a job, the money will come to you eventually. You'll move up and you end up enjoying things a lot more." And I know not everyone can leave their current jobs, but someone like within my own positionality, I was someone who was like, all right, I already have enough money saved. It's about time that I start looking for a full time career. It's a good time to, I guess, quit my retail job and take a break for a while, and then in that time, sort of accumulate work experience to get a full time career. So yeah, a pretty big discussion. I don't blame you if you need to pause this video, rewind to sort of catch what I'm saying, but that is pretty much my life. It's like one small thing that leads to a big thing, and one small thing like going out to a pub really leads to a complex conversation about life and life advice, and that's why I just like hang out with old people, because I feel like the sort of responses you'll get between old and young are going to be very different, and so they should be. But yeah, I guess like mentally, I feel like I'm midlife crisis, like 40 or 50, not like a proper midlife crisis, but feeling all right. Well, I've only just hit the age of 20, but mentally, I feel like 50 at the very least. You know, and I guess this is just due to me hanging around with old people, but um, you know, only time will tell. Only time will tell. I'm not very much of a, I guess, party person, or very much like um, a person who goes out to parties and hangs out constantly every single day, and you know only gets like 4 hours of sleep, like my friend was when he was in his 20s. But um, at the same time, like why should I? Like, if I don't like doing all these things, if I don't like working at this particular place, if I I'm not the party person, if I value sleep, then I don't need to do those things. I can just do what fits me. And I guess if it's one message to take away from this video is you know you got to find what works for you. And I wouldn't say not to stress too much about things in life, and to often speak with the older generation if you want to get, I guess, life advice. Maybe not with housing, but with other things. And you can really learn a lot from other people by listening and sharing these sort of life experiences. Even if it's at a pub or social function, you really learn a lot. And I often think to myself, all right, where I'm going to be in 20, 30 years, but I'm like, all right, well, why not just focus, in the moment, in the present, do things as they come, plan ahead, but don't plan too much ahead. You never know where the future will take you. I never know where my future will take me. Um, and you know, if I don't like something, just to not do it. Yet again, no precaution. I have to pay taxes, even if I might not like. Obviously taxes are essential. I don't think anyone's going to be happy. You're saying, "Oh yeah, tax return or bills," but they're essential. You got to do those. But um, if I don't like yet again working in a specific place or a specific sort of career path or a specific chore or task where I'm not really feeling enjoyment in it, then I'm not going to do it. I need to sort of keep that sort of simple mentality in my life. I don't really overthink things. It's natural to feel worried and stressed about things, but not to really overthink. And I think, my older friend, or the bloke I met today, call him bloke. I don't even want to say friend two times in a single sentence. I just called him a bloke, but he's a friend of mine. Said to me today, and I wholeheartedly agree. And I'd like to hear sort of your experiences with chatting with the older generation or chatting with someone at like a social gathering or event, and you really gain like a lot of advice from them. I guess this video can't really have a sort of definitive theme or title. It's more like what I learned from other people, their life experiences compared to mine. Um, Asking them for advice, they asked me for advice. Mind you, for different aspects, I'm asking them, all right, well, what did you do in your 20s? What's something that you'll recommend I should do whilst I'm in my 20s and not when I reach 30 or 40? And they ask me, how to use this piece of technology. I'm too old. It always goes like that. But, that sort of give and take relation. And yet again, to really, I guess, conclude this video, um, there's a lot of bits I can take from the older generation. I like to, yet again, talk with this friend of mine a lot more, and hopefully we'll plan something again together very soon. I'm going into uni tomorrow. I know I'm not usually in on Mondays, but I'm just doing it as like a study day. And as for like the, I guess, forecast next week, even though I said you can't really predict anything, um, this isn't a weather forecast, it's a forecast of what I am going to do next week. So I'm going to go into uni on Monday, and obviously Tuesday I have a pretty packed day at uni. And then I have something in the afternoon with another friend of mine. Things always come up last minute, you know what I mean. Wednesday, nothing so far. Thursday, nothing so far. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, nothing so far. So yeah, pretty much I know what's going to happen Monday, Tuesday, and then obviously Friday I'm going into the city. That happens every week. But yeah, pretty busy, I guess, week ahead of me. Just given the amount of things I have to do on Tuesday, and even though I said nothing's really going to happen for the rest of the week, I know something's going to happen. And when I mean nothing, usually it'll just be me just studying and doing all that like filler work essentially. Studying, reading books, doing work. I just speak in terms of what major events are going to happen. And I actually got a. I remember now. Sorry, I got a birthday party on next Sunday, so in 7 days' time. So yeah, that's happening. So yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. So yeah, there are things. It's just that they pop up last minute, or I just forget about them, and then when I hit the sort of end record button, I'm like, all right, well, I remember that thing now. Like like there's been plenty of times. I'm just going to end it at this. There's been plenty of times where, I press the end record button. I'm like, all right, now I just remember this bit, this piece of information that I wanted to share on camera, but I forgot about it. I'll just mention in the next video, but then I forget about it in the next video, and then it comes old news. So yeah, pretty packed video, but yeah, I'll just leave it here. I'm excited for what's going to happen next week, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'll catch you all tomorrow. Stay cool, and yeah, have a great one. Bye. See ya.